The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight, President Trump taking the fight back to Iran, continuing to pound targets for another night in a row. And here is the president, because he says they're not messing around.
Do you anticipate that the strikes we're seeing this week against Iran will expand? Are you considering hitting energy targets or other locations inside of Iran?
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. But we're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them, because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
And you just heard it there, him saying next week we will be hitting the energy sites. If that doesn't send chills down the spine of the folks there in Iran, the mullahs, I'm not sure anything does. But if anything is a threat to them, it's the thought that President Trump is going to really hit them where it hurts. Welcome to the Rita Cosby Show on a busy Tuesday night. President Trump, you could tell, is clearly fed up big time with Iran. And so is Netanyahu, for that matter. Netanyahu was asked a little bit ago what he thinks is set to happen. And he said, listen, if there's any action against us, our response next time will be stronger and much tougher than they have ever seen before. And let's not forget, it's the Israelis that were providing some of the intel that took out that strike that took out 40 people, remember, on day one of this latest round. It's the Israelis that obviously had all that information on the pagers. Remember, it's the Israelis that went into Iran and took out some of the proxy leaders in hotel rooms and elsewhere. So these people don't mess around. And you could tell that President Trump and Netanyahu both are fed up and ready to really pound Iran. And just a few hours ago, the naval blockade started. And that's a really big deal, because they're going to lose about $400 million a day, Iran is, with this naval blockade, because the U.S. came out and said the only ships that will not be able to go through the Strait of Hormuz are Iranians, or ones that are bringing oil to and from Iran. So if you're another kind of international company and country, and you're trying to do business with Iran and some shadow dark fleet, that ain't going to work either. And the U.S. is going to stop you. And you can bet that President Trump will really hit them hard if indeed he finds out that folks are trying to skim on the side and trying to do some deals with Iran. So is it kindly, I guess, the time where President Trump is saying, this is it, enough? We are really going to let loose. And it seems that him and Netanyahu are both on the same page, that they are both equally fed up. President Trump feeling like the Iranians have lied to him at every single turn. He definitely seems to have their number, and he clearly feels that they cannot be trusted. And it's time to really, really pay a price. And yet, here is Congressman Tim Burchett. He is Republican from Tennessee. And he feels that the end may not be the pounding of energy plants or other things. He actually feels, he uses the phrase, regime change. Listen to this.
It's not ever going to end until we get down to, we get a regime change down to somebody that we can do business with. And they're going to have to get away from the religious leaders, I think, and get a military leader to run the country.
So he's basically saying it needs to have some form of regime change. Somehow no longer sort of these military individuals in charge. I actually would like to see a big regime change, because this regime you can't trust. Even the, quote, civilized ones that President Trump was hoping were more civilized than the others clearly cannot be trusted. They are not to be dealing with. They're sort of the same. And I think a lot of this is sort of like just kind of, oh, look, he did this. Oh, no, he did this. It's a game to these people. They just don't get it. They clearly are just kind of bouncing the can down the road, playing the same game that they've played with America. And what they don't realize clearly, I think they realize because the B-2 bombers came in pretty loud and clear, and the other bombing came in pretty loud and clear. But still, they need to realize that President Trump is not going to be patient for long. And I think he's been incredibly patient. He clearly did not want this war. He clearly felt that he had to do it for world survival, for the Mideast survival, for Israel's survival, for ultimately America's survival, for future generations. And I commend him on that, you guys. But I do think it's time to finish the job. And clearly, I think President Trump is realizing that too. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And also tonight, the unveiling of the socialist agenda, the Democratic Socialist agenda. Their phrase is workers deserve more. But if you listen to what they're doing, I don't know how it's helping workers. One of the things they talk about is no police. They talk about no prisons. They talk about no Pentagon. They also talk about no U.S. Senate and no president. This is like chaos central. Total chaos central. How is that helping workers? That's not helping workers. This is like making every community less safe. It's making every American less safe. And the fact that these people are pitching it with a straight face is absolutely shocking to me. And Republicans, I'm a registered independent, guys. Republicans, you better wake up because you got to use this to your advantage. You can't sit there and assume that everybody out there in the American public understands it and realizes just how nutty and how ludicrous it is and how overreaching it is. You got to get out there and say, is this what you want? There should be these ads all day long, almost these AI ads. Remember what Spencer Pratt did with the AI ads showing what things would look like under Mayor Bass? And then we saw Bruce Blakeman do a similar one with Governor Kathy Hochul. So there should be these ads of like, is this what you want? No police? Is this what you want? No prisons? You want it to be like a scene out of like a Sylvester Stallone or Steven Seagal movie? Because that's basically what you're telling everybody that you want. These people have no clue what law and order means, what prosperity and peace means. They don't seem to care and they don't seem to get it. And I think this will be the demise of the Democratic Party because I think the Democrats are too afraid to take them on. And you've seen this strength from so many of them. And in fact, even in Maine, where you got Graham Plattner, the guy with the big Nazi tattoo, and that was such a disaster. But you've got them saying up there, well, we need someone like Graham, minus the tattoo, minus the allegations of rape, minus the allegations of physical assault. We need someone nice and wonderful like Graham Plattner with his views that were so extreme Democratic Socialists that we need someone like that because he did get 72% of the vote in the primaries. I mean, that's a sad testament. And Maine is such a beautiful, great state. Wake up, Mainers. You deserve so much better. And he's not alone. You got this guy, El Sayed, Abdul El Sayed. He is running in the Michigan Senate primary. And Abdul El Sayed is running against Mike Turner, a very common sense, normal guy. Abdul El Sayed does have a primary. The primary, I believe, is coming up August 4th. And so there's a lot on the hopper there. And Abdul El Sayed, talk about an extreme. First of all, he hangs around with Hassan Piker. That's the guy who said that America deserved 9/11. And then he's hanging around with all these other kind of questionable characters in Dearborn, Michigan. And if this does not embody the radical Democratic Socialists of America, I don't know what does. Listen to Abdul El Sayed not that long ago, where he actually poses the question, do we really need cops? I kid you not. This is what he said. Take a listen in his own words.
Do police really need to use guns? Do we need as much of a police force? And so if we ask ourselves about how we spend money in the public, where that money goes, where it comes from, we need to make a lot better decisions about investing in the things that root out poverty rather than investing in policing poverty. And we need to understand that these are racialized questions because of systemic racism. When we make a choice to invest in policing in a majority black community rather than to invest in public schools, that choice is influenced by systemic racism. And so we need to take that on, we need to root it out, and we need to be investing in people in the communities in which they live, learn, work, pray, and play, rather than be investing in policing them in those communities. And when we talk about the question of quote-unquote defunding the police, it's a question of asking, how do we right-size government away from the racist ideologies that have led us to investing in war materiel for policing rather than public health for children?
So, do we need guns? That was the focus of his questions. Do we need guns for police? Do we need armed officers? What are they going to be offering? Somebody's breaking into a bank or trying to mug somebody on the subway or trying to break into someone's home, and what, police are supposed to give them a piece of candy? I mean, this is really Looneyville. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. And here is Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying it is a trouble because this is not just a danger to the Democratic Party. It is a danger to America. Take a listen.
And that's why we're speaking in such stark terms, because we need America to wake up. We're not even, look, 35 years ago, Republicans and Democrats in Congress, when I was coming up in, the Reagan years, they were fighting communism on a distant shore. Now it's here. But in Congress, they all agreed on that. They obviously knew that we had to fight communism. And so what they were doing here for domestic policy, that was foreign policy. Domestic policy, they were arguing over, marginal tax rates and the shades of regulation and how large the government should be. There wasn't a huge difference, a chasm between the two parties. Those days are gone. Right now, domestically, we are arguing, we are debating, we are fighting. The election will be over whether we're going to maintain our freedom in a constitutional republic, the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world, the longest surviving constitution on the planet, the nation that everybody wants to emulate, and everybody wants to come here. We have to seal our borders so they won't flood over them. We're the only nation in the world that has that distinction. We're the last great superpower. We are the greatest nation in the history of the world. We are fighting right now in Congress over whether we're going to maintain our status as a constitutional republic, or we're going to trade that in, dismantle the foundations, and go down this dark road of death to communism. That is the question on the ballot this fall. Now, DSA published their platform. I hope you're all covering. I hope you're writing in depth about their platform. I read it out at an event a few weeks ago, and they made an ad mocking me reading their platform. Now, they didn't put the clips with the worst parts of it. Representative Jimenez just told you, Carlos told you that, well, of course they want to pack the Supreme Court, and they want a unicameral legislature. They want the House to run everything, abolish the Senate, because they believe the House would be run by Marxists, communists. They'll be able to run the table on everything. They want to remove the president. What they also want to do is abolish all borders. They don't want any borders. They want mass amnesty granted to anyone who can come onto our shores without exception, even for terrorists and hardened dangerous criminals. Okay? They don't want prisons. It's in their platform. They want to remove the carceral state, they said. No prisons. They don't want to fund the police. This is not a game. Everybody needs to understand. These crazy little mini Mamdanis who are popping up all around the country, they are a danger to you and your family. This is not a game. If they promise you free stuff, there is far more beneath those promises that even some of these people do not understand themselves.
The mini Mamdanis popping up around America. Obviously talking about the mayor of New York, who is a Democratic Socialist, who believes in the DSA policy and ran very heavily on it, especially the anti-Israeli part. We're going to take your calls when we come back. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the The Rita Cosby Show.
Well, it looks like things are in the fast lane when it comes to Iran. President Trump clearly fed up. Netanyahu definitely fed up. And when you have two really furious players like that, and we saw what happened last time, Iran, get ready. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills. Line 1. Go ahead, Stan.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Okay. It's going to get hot tomorrow. Everybody better drink water.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's been
really
so
hot.
muggy. It's been so muggy, which is the worst.
Tomorrow,
Stan.
real bad. Anyway, let's get to it, as we always say.
We're ready.
Look, he may start up again with Iran, but he's not finishing the job, and it doesn't seem that he's going to. Now, we have just heard. I know he said it's going to cost them, I think, $400 million when they barb and so forth for shipping and so forth. Here's the thing. Qatar, supposedly a friend of the United States, which they are not. Qatar just gave $6 billion back to Iran that was frozen, their asset, for supposedly food and so forth. You know and I know that they're not going to use this money for food and help their people. You know they're going to try to restructure their nuclear situation, arms and whatever. So what is this? Why doesn't Trump tell Qatar, don't give them the money. Starve them. Choke them with finance. He's not doing it. Okay? So Qatar is a serious situation.
Yeah. Now, by the way, Stan, you bring up a very good point. I didn't like the idea of, I think it's like $6 billion in unfrozen assets that were going. I don't know if all of it has gone yet or if just a part of it or if it has been halted. The plan was indeed, you're right, Qatar wanted to give that money. And I look at that as sort of like, what is it? Like a bit of almost like a blackmail, like a security, like you pay the mob. Hey, if I give you X money, you won't hit us anymore. And I didn't like that either. What we need to find out, was it all given? Was none of it given? Did President Trump halt that? Because just like you said, he is clearly spending a lot of effort with the Strait of Hormuz. Stan, stick with us because I want to continue with you after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Ocoee, Florida, where a police sergeant is being credited with rescuing a woman who was trapped inside an overturned vehicle after spotting the crash before it had even been reported to the dispatch. Body cam footage shows Sergeant Juan Munoz breaking a window and helping the woman escape from the vehicle, which had rolled onto its roof. When asked about the incident, he said, I could tell she was very distraught. He was calmly talking to the woman during the rescue operation as she remained trapped inside her vehicle. He said, I could tell that she was so distraught. She still had her seatbelt on and she didn't want to undo her seatbelt. He said, if you're panicked or you're screaming, they're going to scream. They're going to get more panicked. So I tried to stay calm to help her. All I thought of was I have to quickly get her out of the car. After helping the woman through the broken window, he guided her away from the wreckage, which soon burst into flames. Just getting her out in the nick of time. He was then able to get the fire department. She was transported to a nearby hospital and is making a recovery there. And bravo, of course, to our great men and women in blue. Well, we're going to go back to Stan in one moment in Forest Hills. The number's 1-800-848-9222. And here is President Trump saying, here's his message for Iran.
You've called the new leadership in Iran a changed regime. Do you still believe that?
Well, I knew the first group for a little while, and they were evil, and they're no longer with us. I knew the second group also a little bit better, and they were evil, and they're no longer with us. And the third group, they have some bad ones in there, some very bad ones in there.
Just some?
And I think they're the ones that are stopping a deal.
So are you negotiating with the wrong people?
Well, now I don't want to negotiate now. I said, let's not negotiate. 3 days ago, we had a deal.
When was the last time you spoke with an Iranian official?
Well, not me, but let's say my representatives. I have spoken to them, but my representatives over the course of, actually, an hour ago.
And what message was delivered?
They want to make a deal, but every time they make a deal, they break it. They don't want to die. People don't want to die. About an hour ago.
And what message was delivered?
You better make a deal. You're not going to have anybody left. We're being very careful with the civilian population, as you know, but I said, you better make a deal. You're not going to have anything left.
And you think they will?
They should. I don't know if they will or not.
Very interesting. President Trump sounding genuinely concerned, obviously, where things are going, and genuinely no faith in this Iranian regime. I think that's a wise answer by President Trump. And here is what he said. He said, clearly, force is the only message that they understand in that part of the world.
Honestly, if we left right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild what they have. The only way you can negotiate with these people is through strength. And the only strength is military strength. And that's what we've done. And I mean, literally 2 days ago, we had a deal. And then they broke it at the last moment. They broke it.
No surprise. They had a deal, and then they quickly broke it. And then he was asked, that's Trey Yangst with Fox News, who's doing that interview that just was done tonight, that he said, you know what? I'll determine when it's over. Because he was asked, hey, when will you know? And here's what he said.
Will these strikes continue?
They'll continue until I say it's enough. I mean, they'll continue. They've been, the word the military likes to use is degrade. They've been degraded to a very low level. And they have fight. It's like a great boxer. You think you have him beat, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he gives you a shot. They have some fight left, but they don't have much. And their weapon degrading has been incredible at a level. Nobody thought it was possible to do it this quickly.
They are definitely degraded, but you can also tell that President Trump's also pretty sober about everything and saying, you know what, I don't like this, but I'm going to have to go in and pound them. Let's go back to Stan. Stan, you brought up a great point, and thank you for waiting, because you brought up a great point about this money from Qatar, and we need to get clarification. Did they actually transfer the $6 billion? We don't know. We know that there was discussions of it, and I agree with you. I think it should be halted. And I just want to remind everybody, Stan, because this new block at the Strait of Hormuz, this new blockade, it's going to cost them, the Iranians, $400 million a day. That's a lot of moolah. That's a lot of moolah shmoolah. So if you're looking at that, obviously you can make up $6 billion pretty quickly, but why give them the money? I never understood that either, Stan. So why do you think that is?
First of all, what it's going to do is, obviously they won't be degraded. Here's the thing you don't talk about. Quietly, measurably, China and Russia are going to help Iran. It's obvious they're going to get the money from Qatar. Qatar is really friends of theirs, and so we're being used by these countries. I don't trust them, but China, Russia are meeting with Iranians. They sent, first of all, the Russians sent some of their best people, military, to China, and China sent their best military to Russia to help on maneuvers and so forth. Also, the Iranians, I think, I heard, sent some people. So here's the thing. The triad of China, Russia, and Iran is a solid possibility. That's what bothers me and to some extent scares me.
Yeah, and Stan, you bring up a great point, because you're right. I think Russia and China are clearly playing around a lot with Iran. There is no doubt about it. And I think they're also delivering some hardware. Like earlier today, I don't know if you heard on Katz and Cosby, who had Admiral Harwood. This guy's, major player. He was the deputy commander there at CENTCOM, and he firmly believes that they're delivering military might. So you're right. We got to keep an eye on. There's a lot of chess pieces here, and Stan, you spotlighted a number of them. But I do trust President Trump, and thank God he's the president now versus Biden and these others. Stan, your phone is crackling, so you got to work on your phone too. But we love you because you always crack us up. So 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Philly, line 4. Go ahead, Robert. Your thoughts tonight, my friend.
Hi, Rita. As always, it is great to talk to you. And I basically just wanted to talk real quick about the so-called differences between socialism and communism.
Sure.
And finally, the reason why they both ultimately fail. Somebody once asked Ayn Rand what the difference between socialism and communism was, and she was like, well, communism is usually imposed by the bullet. Socialism is often imposed by the ballot. So the question is really, what's the difference between being murdered and committing suicide? And the reason why it's called socialism is because they're in a country where they can't use arms to impose communism. Socialism is the selling of communism, basically, to gullible voters. And the reason why it doesn't work ever is because both of them are basically a two-part contract, okay? The first part is seizing the wealth and the means of production. The second part is distributing that amongst the masses or the proletariat. The problem is they never do the second part. They always take control of the wealth and the means of production, but then it just winds up where their subjects just have new masters, not freedom. It's a complete dog and pony show, and the only reason people, especially the young, are falling for it is because in places where the left controls education, they're indoctrinated with it. From the time they start school to the time they see Hollywood, from media to high school to college, and that's why, since they're still not winning elections consistently, they're trying to get their message into the elementary schools because they know that kids, by the time they're 8, have a sense of what a normal world is. And if they can imprint their insanity on that before they get to that point, I'm telling you, Rita, it's a complete sickness. And it amazes me that it's doing as well as it is in this country right now.
It's disheartening, isn't it? Why is that? Now, let's get to that too, Robert, because, and by the way, your descriptions were, I think, spot on and really powerful and I think very eloquent in terms of describing the two layers there. So why is it doing well, especially now in America with a certain sect? I think there are a lot of people looking at it and going, oh, that is clearly nuts. I mean, I read some of the things and Speaker Mike Johnson quoted some of the things, and boy, are they loony. I mean, Robert, it's like frightening. I mean, but they say it with a straight face. They have no problem. So why is it growing here in the United States?
Strictly indoctrination to the education system. And I have a quick example. In 2000, my daughter was 12, came home and asked me why Republicans voted against the Civil Rights Act. I said, where did you hear that? And she said, my teacher told me that. It was a teaching moment, though. I didn't get mad. I went online. We showed her 81% of Republicans voted for it. Only 63% of Democrats voted for it. It was a big issue at the time because it was Bush-Gore. Bush's grandfather, Prescott, co-sponsored the bill. Al Gore's father not only voted against the Civil Rights Act, but he participated in the longest filibuster in the history of this country at 73 days. When she saw that, she stopped listening to what their teachers were trying to imprint upon her. And it's just proof that if you're a parent and you're engaged in your kid's education, you can head this off as a pass. She went through an elite high school, she went through college, and she had that solid grounding early on that got her through that without falling for that indoctrination. But it permeates society, from media to the mainstream media to Hollywood, academia, everywhere you look now. The Democrats, even football, they're trying to, you know what I'm saying? Everything they touch, they ruin for the purpose of indoctrinating their subjects. And that's how I see it. And
Robert, do me a favor, stick with us because I want to play this to me, which is just unbelievable. I mean, they don't hide it. And I agree with you. I think it is part of this terrible indoctrination process. Getting these people, same thing. You see them out there protesting on college campuses. You see them, some of them even carrying, pro-Hamas pro-Ayatollah signs. I mean, it's frightening. It really is frightening. I never imagined we would see that. And yet, listen to this. This is the DSA co-chair. His name is Asik Sadiq. And here he is. He did an interview. This was just a few days ago. And he's going on, and he's blasting the U.S. Senate, something as fundamental as the U.S. Senate. Now, remember, in the Constitution, you got to have states' rights. States have to have a say. That's a lot of the role of the U.S. Senate. But listen to this. Listen to what he says with a straight face. This is not a joke. I wish it was, but listen to him.
We just don't see the point of the Senate. Historically, it was meant to serve very wealthy people who owned a lot of land. And that's still a system that we have today, and it's something we would change. We would expand what the House of Representatives does and make it more actually representative of people who live in this country.
So would you like to abolish the Senate?
That's part of our platform, and we don't think that's extreme. We think it's a change that would help make this country more democratic.
Isn't that amazing? We don't think it's extreme. And now here, Robert, listen to this. Same guy. Here he is on the Supreme Court. Listen to how he'd like to change the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court was mentioned as something that we would want more democratic oversight over, and that is important. Right now, whether it's the Democratic Party in power or Republican Party in power, a president can just choose who to appoint that can be there for decades and help make decisions about how our government works. We think that that's not really very democratic, that just the whims of 9 people who are, they're obviously smart people, but they have their own interests. And there's a kind of elitism that comes from just the idea that very especially people who have a certain education or life experience should be making decisions for everybody, and that tends to be pretty elitist. People who go to certain elite colleges or law schools or whatever, and then are seen as experts, but they might not have the same interests, like class interests of everybody.
I mean, is this not crazy? We want to reshape the Supreme Court. Oh, yeah, it's not radical. We want to reshape the U.S. Senate. I mean, what do you say to these people, Robert?
Well, they want to, they're against families because good families give you grounded citizens. They're against religion because religion is a competition for them, for the hearts and minds of the people. They don't like the Supreme Court because they stand for the Constitution, and that gets in the way of their agenda. And they don't want the Senate because the Senate tends to slow down extremist measures in legislature. And they do this in the name of democracy, which is hilarious because another definition, Rita, that sheer democracy is 3 wolves and 1 sheep voting on what to have for dinner. And that is the same in the human world as well. Sheer democracy is sheer democracy is really communism. And then once you do that sheer democracy, you don't have a vote once the communists take over anymore. So it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. Rita, I could go on forever, but I'll let other callers get in. I really appreciate the time.
I love hearing from you, Robert. You're terrific. Thank you very, very much. Let's go to Dom, line 1 in Minnesota. Dom, your thoughts.
Yeah, Rita, we created a Mamdani Chevalier and the like because the mass brainwashing we've done in the last quarter century. Mamdani has a degree in Africana studies. Miss Chevalier has a degree in sociology. So when Mamdani's dream of free college for all will end up graduating next generation in degrees in Karl Marxism, Cucamonga studies, feminist studies, collective farming, and all of these things. That's what they're planning on doing. When they say free college, they're going to create puppets that are going to follow them like sheep. That's exactly what their motivation is. I think the Speaker of the House was exactly right. But the problem is most younger generations, the message is not getting through. We need to get the message through to the universities and colleges. Just talking at the White House and Congress is not going to help. Not everybody is doing that. This is the problem.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem is they're growing up, not just like the education system, but a lot of them essentially are like-minded, if you will, and they're going home to like-minded people too as well. So if you put all of that together, they're sort of living in their little incubation, and they don't know people outside that go, wait a minute, that sounds crazy. They don't have anybody. Their parents agree with them for the most part. Their teachers agree with them. Other faculty members agree with them. Their friends agree with them. So unless they get out in the real world or have parents with disparate views, they're never going to get it. You're right. We have a mess on our hands, you guys, because you don't want this to spread like cancer, these beliefs all over the country. You want what we're seeing now to be a one-off, in New York. Unfortunately, it's not, because you brought up Chevalier and some of these others. But we got to pray that it doesn't spread even further, because it is dangerous and it is deeply concerning. And even what we've already seen in New York, it's a mess. When we get back, you guys, and Dom, we'll talk about this homeless. I don't know if you saw, they have like 12 blocks of homeless outside the Intrepid Museum in New York, because Mondani doesn't think it's really nice to move them. What about the people going by every day? I would say that's a problem. Dom, thank you very much. Always love hearing from you. 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, we will continue right after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's continue with your calls. Let's go to Alice in Ohio. Go ahead, Alice. Your thoughts tonight on line 4.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Rita. Professor Dershowitz on your 5 o'clock Cats and Cosby today brought up an interesting point. Go after the students. They were the ones, for example, that started Hitler's rise at Heidelberg University.
Yep.
Go to the students. Go to their influencers and their social networkers working. For example, go address these young women who are interested in in pushing the Palestinian. If they get involved with this, they will lose everything you and I worked for. They will become chattel. They can lose an opportunity for education, for advancement. They will have to wear a burqa or head covering. Go after the gay community. I couldn't believe it when I saw Queers for Palestine.
I couldn't either. By the way, you bring up a great point. I mean, they last about 5 seconds in the Palestinian territories. These people are clueless. You're right. They need, I think, a big wake-up call.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?